Hello friends, welcome back to CSharp.net online training video series. Today we are going to discuss the role of events, delegates and event handlers in CSharp.net application. Right? So at the end of this video, I'm sure you will understand what are events, what are delegates, what are event handler and the role and responsibility of event delegates and event handler along with event arcs in .NET framework. So let's start today's session. So first, what we are going to discuss? First, we are going to discuss what is the role of events. Once we discuss the role of events, then we will proceed further and we will understand what is the role of delegates, and finally we will discuss the role of event handlers. Right? To understand these three concepts, right? One of the best example is old tin can example. Right? If you ever did right, if you ever played this game as a kid, then you might know that it is a funny way of attacking, right? And this is actually a good analogy of event delegate and event handler along with event arcs, right? So by taking this old tin can example, I'm going to explain you this four piece of information, right? Now look at this diagram, right? Here on the left hand side, we have the little kid who is talking, right? And on the right hand side, there is another person. Let's assume that this person is nothing but her father, right? Who is listening, right? So in this case, we can say that this little kid or this little girl is nothing but your event raiser, right? And the dad or the person who is on the right hand side who is listening what this little kid is saying is nothing but the event handler, right? And you can see between this event raiser and event handler, there is a pipeline, right? So there is a pipeline between this event raiser and event handler, and technically we can term that pipeline as delegate, right? And the delegate is really what makes everything is possible when it comes to raising an event and handling the event. Why? Because this delegate is actually make a link between this event raiser and event handler, and without a delegate it is not possible to raise an event and to handle that event. So right, so delegate is the most important piece of most important element when it comes to event handling, right? So and what is this event argument means? Whatever the a child is saying, that information, that data we need to pass to the event handler, that data is nothing but going to be stored inside this event arcs, and that event arcs is uh, going to be processed or is going to be passed through the delegates, right? So we'll discuss again what is this event raiser in detail, event arcs in detail, delegates in detail, event handler in detail. So to summarize that, what we can say that there are four information, four piece of element involved in event handling. One is event raiser, who is going to raise the event, that is who is going to send the notification, and event handler, this is nothing but the listener. It might be a single listener, there might be multiple listener who is going to listen or who is going to handle the event which is raised by the event raiser. And this information, what this little kid is sending, that will be stored inside this event arc. So you can say this is nothing but your event data, and that event data will be transferred, right? Will be moved from point A to point B, or you can say move from event raiser to event handler via the delegate. The delegate is nothing but the pipeline which makes it possible to transfer the event data, right? So with this keep in mind, let us proceed and try to understand, right? See, if you think about it, if I raise an event, so when an event is raised, means something is happening. So in this case, when the event is raised, the little kid is saying something, right? The little kid is saying something to the tin can. Then how does that actually make it over to the dad? How that thing is, whatever that little kid is saying, how that the information is passed to her dad? We assume that right, and that is passed through the delegate, and we assume that or that listen what this little kid is saying, right? And it travels across the pipeline means whatever this little kid is saying, that is traveling through the delegate. That is the role of a delegate, and once we progress, then we will discuss more about the delegate. And another important piece is event arcs, as we discuss. When the little child is talking, right, we need that data or information to pass to the event handler, right? So in this case, you can see when the little kid is saying something, right, then that information, that data need to be transferred over to a that, and that information is nothing but, in this case, you can consider event arguments, right? So once you progress, right, once you start programming, then you will get more clarity, more idea related to what is this event arcs, what is this delegate, what is this event raiser, and what is all this event handler. Now let us try to understand the role of event in C Sharp. So role of event means, let us first try to understand what is this event raiser is, and then we'll understand delegate, then we'll understand event handler, then we'll understand the role of event arcs. Let's start with this piece of information, event raiser, right? Events are an important part of a .NET framework, and you can find throughout them. For example, when you click on a button, right? So suppose you are working with a, any kind of web form application or Windows form application, then you might be known that the .NET framework provides some functionality called a drag and drop. So you can drag the component or element from the toolbox and paste it on your Y, or in your Y. UI, right? So in that case, suppose you uh, have some element called button element, you have some element called a drop down element, right? So when you click on the button, one event is going to be fired. When you change the drop down link index position, another event is going to be fired. Okay, and you can also take an example of e-commerce application, right? So whenever we are developing some e-commerce application, means we are going to sell some product, right? And when the customer place an order, right, when the customer buy any product, then an event notification you might be sent to notify the other part of the system that order has been placed. Why it is important to see? When we placed an order, so behind the scene many things is going to be happen. So first of all, we need to check, right, so who placed the order, what is his shipping address, what is his billing address, right? So how we are going to courier that order, how we can change the status of the order, right? All these things behind the scene we need to process. Then how we can process? Now we need to send the notification to all these all these other parts, right? So once we send notification to different parts of the system, then they can take the data and they can process the order further, right? This is nothing but one notification we are sending. That notification we are sending means we are placing an order, and that is nothing but your order placed event. Now let us proceed and try to understand the fundamental of event. What are events? Why they are used for, right? As shown earlier, an event is simply a notification, such as the little girl on the left-hand side sending a notification. So in this case, what is an event means? Sending some notification. What notification in this example we are sending? Now we are sending the notification through speech. What the little child is saying, that information we are sending to the listeners, right? So in this case, our dad is the only one listener, but it is possible that it might be multiple listener, right? Whoever the listener registered with this event, whenever the child raised the event, right, that information will be sent to all the listener, right? Then what is an event? See, events events are nothing but simple, since we can say it's their notification, right? So in simple word, we can say that it is a message that goes out to one or more people, or you can say these peoples, you can say here, subscriber, or you can say listeners, you can say event handlers. So whenever we send one notification, whenever we raise an event, that means we need to send notification to multiple people, right? But in .NET framework, in .NET technologies, they are not people, they are simply objects. Events play a central role in .NET framework. Yes, they are playing important role or in .NET framework, and you can see them, right, all over place, right? Whenever you type anything in Visual Studio, if you ever seen a lighting bulb type icon, that means it is an event, right? So we'll come to this point later part of this video, right? Once you start programming. Events provides a better way to trigger notifications. So you could think of a user, right, who talks loudly, or Bolver, or talks on Bolver to announce something to a group of people that something is going to be happen. For example, one person giving his birthday party, right? In a Volvo or in micro, he's saying something that the party is about to start it. That means what he is saying, that is nothing but the event, and who are the people who are attending the party? They are nothing but the event listener, or you can say event handler, or you can say if you are watching the cricket match, right? At the end of the cricket match, there is a prize ceremony is going to happen. That is nothing but also one event, and these are nothing but the event from the human point of view, right? In the programming world, an event is also the same thing. It is just instead of having this bolver, right, or instead of talking loudly, here we are going to notify, right, using events. And then we will use something called a delegate event arguments and the event handlers, right? So whenever we are raising the events, right, and whenever we are raising the events, then there is something called you can say event arg. There is something called delegates, and there is something called event handler. They will come into the picture. So what is event raiser means? It is nothing but notification, sending notification. How the notification is going to be sent? Right, who is handling that notification? How that notification is reached to the event handler? That will not the responsibility of event raiser. What is the responsibility of event raiser? Means to send the notification, right? Now let us try to understand. Let us example the let us understand if let us understand one example of an event. Now, the simplest example of an event is button. If you have worked with C Sharp, and if you have done any kind of work, UI work, right, like Windows Form application, or if you are working in web form application, then you might be know that button element has many events like click event, mouse over, mouse out, and many more. Suppose you drag and drop the button control. Okay, directly let me give you with an example. Okay, let me create one Windows Form application. Let me give this name as event and delegate. Okay. Okay, so this is my UI, and this is my toolbox, right? And you can see there are many elements in the toolbox, right? So let me drag one drop and place it here. So this is nothing but one button element, right? And if you go to the properties of this button element, right, then you will see that there are many. So you can see this is the event button. Click on this, and you can see this is click event, touch change, cursor change, right? Key up, key press, key down, mouse over, mouse out, mouse click, right? Many events are associated with this button element. So this is the thing that I'm writing. Then you might be know that button element has many events like click event, mouse over, mouse out, many more. Suppose you drag and drop the button control from a toolbox into the Windows Form application and placing it. Then when you double click on the button element behind the seat, it generates a click event handler. Now I double click on this, right? So once I double click on the button element, then you will see that behind the scene, one event handler is generated. And you can see this event handler, right? This is nothing but event handler, and it is taking two parameter. One is object sender, and this is the event apps, right? This is the parameter which is going to contain the event data, right? So in this case of a in the case of a button, we have one button with one event handler that listen to the button click event. So in this case, you can see. So whenever I run the application and whenever I click on the button, this event handler is going to listen. So in this case, what happened? In this case, for one button, we are having only one event handler, right? But in real-time application, right, it is not only one to one. It is not only that one event raiser and one event handler. It might be possible that we have a multiple event handler, right? So that's what we are going to discuss in our coming session, right? And whenever the button is clicked, right, so or whenever the event is raised, all the event handler or all the event listeners who are attached to with that particular event, all of them is going to get the notification. How? That is what we are going to discuss once we start programming. right? Now, when an event is fired, we know that something is happened, but typically we also have some event data, and that we want to know for further processing. So in this case, you can see, so this object center means this property will give you who sent the notification or who raised the notification and what data that we want to receive, right? Suppose we are raising one event means we need to send some event data. That event data will be stored inside this event args property, right? For example, in the case of an order, suppose you are placing an order, then order place event is fired, right? If order place event is fired, we need to send the notification to other part of the system, right? If only sending the notification is not enough, right? What we need to do along with the we also need to provide the information, right? So thinking that one order place is not enough, we also need to provide some information like who placed the order, what is the number of quantity available in that particular order, right? What is the cost of the order? What is the billing address? What is the shipping address? How the order is, I mean, what is the payment method the user uses to place the order, right? Whether it is a online payment or it is a cash on delivery, right? Everything we need to provide to other part of the system, then only they can process the data, right? Process the order, right? So in this case, what information we are passing, right? That we are going to pass by using this properties called event arcs, right? So most of the events in .NET framework having event arcs. In other words, event data gets routed from point A to point B, right? From event raiser to event handler using this event arcs only, right? So this is the role of event right now. Let us proceed and try to understand the role of delegates, right? As a programmer, it is very important for us to understand this concept. Why? Now see, delegates, it is not only used to the event handling, but it is also used for many different purposes, right? If you are working with multi-threading, asynchronous programming, parallel programming, delegate is going to be used, right? If you want to implement some kind of a callback function functionalities, then you need to use delegates, right? So it is one of the most important concept, and framework uses this concept very frequently. And even when you are working with auto-generated code, then you will see the use of delegates, right? In fact, without delegate, event would not be useful at all, right? Why? Now see, if we are raising an event and if we want to send some data, right? Then that data is going to be sent through the event arc. But how that data is going to be passed from the point A to point B? Only by using the concept called the delegate. And there is no other ways to transfer data from point A, from event raiser to event handler without to delegate. See, in this case, suppose you are raising one event, right? And you want to send the data to the event handler. How you are going to pass the data? Using event arc. But where this event arc is going through means using the pipeline, using the delegate. You will provide that data to the delegate, and the delegate will provide the data to the respective event handler who are registered, right? So if this is not clear at the moment, don't worry. Once you start programming, then you will get a better clarity related to this event arc and this delegates. Right. If you go back to our tin can example, event raiser is there who will send the notification. And of course, we have event listener or event handler who will receive the notification. For example, in this case, this is the event raiser and this is the event handler. Here, event raiser will send the notification and that notification will be received by the event handler. Right. So this is the thing. Now, let's imagine this event raiser is not talking through this tin can. So he's not talking through this tin can. Then what will happen? Now this event handler will not listen what this event raiser is saying, right? So that means what? Now, it means if you want to send data to this event handler, then you need to talk through this pipeline only, right? This pipeline will take the responsibility to get the data from the event raiser via this event arch, and this pipeline is also responsibility to check who are the event handler registered with this particular event, and then accordingly he will provide this event arc to the respective event handlers, right? So that means what? Now, without a delegate, it is not possible to send the data, right? It is not possible to transfer the data from event raiser to the event handler, right? So this is the use of delegates in .NET framework. So what is delegate? Now let's come and let's try to understand the technical definition. A delegate is a specialized class. In our coming session, you will see that there is a keyword called delegate in .NET framework. And what really a delegate means, it is a function pointer, right? So saying function pointer means this is the technical definition. And once you start programming, then you will understand why we are saying delegate is a function pointer. But to simplify this function pointer definition, what we can say that a delegate is a glue or pipeline, right, between the event raiser and event listener. So you can see this is the delegate. This is nothing but a pipeline, and this pipeline is between the event raiser and the event listener, right? And this pipeline allows our event data, right, or event arc to go over to the event handler. So what is the use of this pipeline means? This pipeline will get the data from event raiser, and this pipeline will transfer that data to the event handler. So this is the use of a delegate, right? Now, behind the scene, when we create events, right, actually delegates are created. This is a special, okay, there is a special class in .NET framework called multicast delegate, and this is the class that actually tracks everyone who are listening to the event, right? So see, in our next video, once you start programming with a delegate, then I will show you if I'm creating a delegate, right? That delegate, when the compiler sees the delegate keyword, then the compiler will convert that delegate to a class, and that class is going to be inherited from this multicast delegate class. So what are the things available in multicast delegate class, right? What is the signature? All these things we are going to discuss in our next video, right? So when the event notification is sent, so when the event notification sent, right? Let's assume there is a piece of information. Okay, let me go to the diagram and explain you this data, right? Suppose this is one delegate. We created one delegate, and let's assume that 50 event handler are there. They are registered within this delegate for this particular event, right? When this event raiser send the notification, he send that notification to the delegate, and the delegate will check, right? The delegate will check who are the event listeners, who are the event handler registered for this event. Yes, there are 50 event handler or 50 event listeners. They are registered with this event. So what this delegate will do is it will transfer that event data, or it will send that notification to all the 50 listeners who are registered within this delegate. So that is the point, or that is the important information about the delegate. That means what? That means this delegate tracks. It tracks all the information about the event handlers, right? Who are the event handler? Who are registered with the event, right? All this information will be tracked by this delegate, and this is possible because of the multicast delegate. And that multicast delegate is the immediate parent class of the delegate what we are going to create, right? If this is not clear at the moment, don't worry, once you start programming, then you will understand this thing better. So delegate is a pipeline. Yes, delegate, as I mentioned, at the pipeline. So you can see this is nothing but a pipeline. So this pipeline makes a connection between the event raiser and the event handler, and this is nothing but your pipeline. And through this pipeline, your event arc is going to be transferred, right? So what we are going to do before we raise the event, we have our event arcs. Event arcs means our event data that we want to send from point A to point B, and we are going to send the event data through the pipeline. Now the event arcs or the event data going over the pipeline and will reaches to the event handler. So whenever we are raising the event means we are going to send a notification. We are sending notification means we are going to transfer our event data. How the event data is going to be transferred means only via the delegate. If delegate is not there, then you cannot send this event data from the event raiser to the event handler. That is the thing that you need to understand, right? So now it's up to the event handler, right? So once you send the data, right? Once you send the data to the event handler, then it's up to the event handler. What he wants to do with the event data, that is his responsibility. Whether he wants to update the UI or whether he wants to update the database, right? That is the responsibility of event handler, right? Once you discuss the role and the responsibility of event handler, then you will get a better clarity. But the thing that you need to understand, delegate. Delegate means it is a pipeline. So you can see this is nothing but your event raiser, and this is nothing but your event handler. And this is nothing but your event arcs, means this is nothing but your event data. And this event data is delegates, right? It's passing through the pipeline from event raiser to the event argument, right? Moving data over the pipeline from point A to point B, right? So this is what you need to understand, right? Now let's take a simple example. Let's assume we have a button, right? And in order for us to route this data from point A to point B, we need to have a delegate involved. And when we click on the event, so when we click on the button click event is raised, right? And the delegate gets the data from the click event, and whatever function or method you can see event handler attached to that delegate is going to execute and process the data. Okay, to simplify this, suppose there is a button element and you just raise the button click event. Then this button clicks. So in this case, you can see this is your button element, and when you run the application and when you click on this button, the button click event is raised, and that button click event is raised means this button click event handler is going to execute. But how? But in between the click event and in between your handler method, there is something called a delegate. But in this case, you might be one question, sir. This is the button I can see, and when I run the application, I can click on this button. So the button click event is going to be fired, and this is your handler method, right? But where is this delegate? I cannot see the delegate. Yes. If you want to see the delegate, you need to expand this forms.cs, and there is one form one.designer.cs, and once you open this designer, which is nothing but your auto-generated code, and you can see Windows form designer generate code, and just expand this one. And once you expand this one, right, then you will see that this is nothing but your button click event, right? And this button click event is okay, and this is nothing but your event handler, and this is nothing but your sorry, this is nothing but your pipeline, or you can say delegate. And for this button click event, right, this is your delegate and this is your handler. This handler method, what you can see here, button one underscore click, this button one underscore click is registered within the delegates, and when the button click event is fired, so it will pass that data to the event handler, and the event handler will then check what is the handler method that is registered for this button click event. Yes, this handler method is registered for this button click event, so let pass the data to this button click event, and in this case that data is going to be passed over this event args.e parameter, right? So once we start programming, right, then you will understand how you can pass data to this parameter. Right now, we have discussed what is this event raiser, we have discussed what is this event arcs, and we have discussed this delegate. So event raiser means it is going to send the notification. Event args means this is going to hold our event data. What data we want to send from event raiser to event handler, that data is going to be stored inside this event args parameter. And what is delegate? Delegate means it is a pipeline which make a link between the event raiser and event handler, and through this pipeline we are going to send our event data from this place to this place. And event handler means it's going to be registered within this pipeline, and once it registered, then only it is going to get the data from the pipeline, right? This delegate will track all the information about all the handler methods who are registered with the particular event, right? That information will be available through by this delegate, and the delegate will check the event handlers who are registered, and accordingly will pass this event data to all those such event handlers. Now, let us try to understand what is the role of event handler. The final piece of events and delegates is event handler. Of course, if you work with .NET before, this won't be a surprise thing for you. This is because if you are working with Windows Form or a web form application, and if you have a button and when you double click on it, it will generate event handler for the click event of the button. That is what we have already seen. So this is nothing but your UI, and this is nothing but your button element, and when you double click on this button element, then this event handler is going to be generated. So this is nothing but your event handler, and it is having two parameter. One is object sender and another one is event args. What is this sender parameter? This sender parameter is nothing but who raised the event, and this object event args parameter is basically for the purpose of event data. Whatever event data you are passing, that data will be stored inside this parameter. Now let's talk about the fundamental things of event handler. That is how the event handler work in .NET Framework, right? So if you look at the big picture, the person at the right hand side is nothing but your event handler. You can see right hand side. This is the person who is in the right hand side. It is nothing but the event handler, right? And that person or event handler wants to get some data, right, which we call as event arc. So what is this event handler is going to get? Like it is expecting some data, and that data is nothing but in this case event arcs. And from where you will get the data? From the delegate only you will get the data, right? Then, so when the event raises, right, the delegate routes the data some type of a callback function, and then the event handler processes the data and does something with that data, such as updating the UI or updating the data. Simply speaking, right, this is the use of event handler. Event handler is a method in CSharp who is responsible for receiving and processing the data it gets from the delegate. So what is this event handler? Now it will receive the event data, right, from the delegate, and once it receives the event data, then it's up to him. Whatever he want, he can do with the data, right? If you want to update the UI, you will update the UI. If you want to update the database, you will update the database, right? Now it is up to the event handler to do the necessary action, right? So normally in C#.NET framework, event handler having two parameters. You can see, so normally this is my event handler, and this event handler having two parameters. One is object sender. This parameter is basically to track who raises the event, right? And this event args means this parameter is nothing but, you can say, it is a container which is going to contain our event data. Now, how it is a container, how it is going to contain our event data, we will discuss once we start programming, right? So what is event handler means? It is responsible for receiving and processing the data from a delegate. So the point that you need to remember, it is never going to get the data directly from the event raiser. It always going to get the data from the delegate only, right? And normally it have two parameters, sender parameter and event args. And event args parameter is responsible for encapsulating the event data, right? So what you need to understand, now even event handler is responsible for accessing the data passed by a delegate, right? So event handler never directly communicate with the button, right? Or you can say event raiser. He is always going to get the data from the delegate. So you can see, so for this button click event, right? And there is a event handler. This event handler is registered with the delegate for this particular event. Where this is happening? This is happening in this statement. So in this case, this is my button click, button underscore one click event handler. This handler registered with this registered with this event handler. So this event handler, don't consider that this is the event handler. This is a delegate, right? This delegate, and this is your handler method. This handler method is registered within this delegate, right? So if you go to the definition, then you will see that what is this? This is a delegate, right? So the point that you need to remember, this is your event handler. This event handler is registered within this delegate, and this delegate is attached with this event, right? So whenever this event is fired, whatever the data, that data this event will provide to this event handler delegate, and this event handler delegate will then check who are the event handler method registered for this particular click event, and then accordingly you will pass that data to that particular event handler method. In this case, there is one-to-one for this particular click event, only one handler, right? So this delegate will get the data from this event and will pass the data to this button one underscore click event. And if you go to the handler method, then you will see that there are two parameters. One is object sender and another is event args. Right now, how you will get the data from the event handler? Uh, right. So if you look at this event handler signature, it's having the return type as void and it is taking two parameter. Now, if you go to this event handler method, right? So, sorry, event handler delegate, then you will also see that this delegate also having the same signature as the event handler method. Now go to the definition and you can see this signature, its return type is void and it is also having two parameters same as your event handler method, right? That's it for today. In the next video, I'm going to discuss delegates in detail. I know you might be have many questions related to today's session because it is just a theoretical session. But once you start programming, then I'm 100% sure you will get better clarity, right? Please watch our next video to understand what are exactly this piece delegates, right? So once you understand delegate, once you understand event arcs, then we'll understand event raiser and event handler. Because until and unless we are not covering this delegate, you cannot understand event raiser and event handler. That's it for today. Thank you for watching this video. In case you need the text document what I'm showing in this video, please go to the video description section where I will provide the link. From the link, just go to that link and get the document.